Hello, 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 and welcome to the Mystic Nerd Squad podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Meyerson, the original Mystic Nerd, here today to invite this fantastic guest of mine to share her wisdom, her stories, and of course, all the ways in which you can become part of her world, because I just know that so many of you are going to be so inspired. Today, I'm speaking with Hina Fatima, and she is an NLP Master Trauma Relief Coach. And when she sent me the title for today's episode, I was so giddy with joy. You Matter, Aiming for Imperfection. As a recovering perfectionist, because I feel like it is a recovery versus like you're over it. There's still moments that perfectionism rears its ugly head in all the ways that it does. But the idea of aiming for imperfection makes me want to lean in. So first of all, Hina, welcome. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast.
Thank you so very much, Kelly, for having me. It's an honor to be here and speaking to your audience. Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
And talking about imperfection, I just need 1 second. I need to give this iPad. My daughter's teacher is calling. They have a class.
Okay, no problem. So while Hina is passing on the iPad to her daughter, see, this is what gets me really excited about my guest, because we are real women, real moms facing real life challenges. So as you're listening, you probably relate to that we are juggling so many balls at once, and we're juggling them beautifully. And I'm so excited that little piece of imperfection exists there. Because it's realistic. I was saying it as you were bringing the iPad to your daughter, that like we are real women, moms with lots of balls that we're juggling that are always in the air. And we get to do this gracefully and with imperfection. So tell me a little bit about yourself and your history. It looked like you had something to say about that.
Yeah,
So go with that first.
I was just adding, a lot of my clients or people, when I'm doing lives and my daughter, they barge in, or I have to tend to their question. And people kind of give me a very positive feedback with that. They always tell me, Hina, we love the fact that whatever you're doing, your children are always around you. Even if you're doing a training or it's a class, but you know what they're doing, and you're there for them. And I'm like, yeah, because kids are part of my life, like anything and everything that I do is with them, is for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And well, there it was. So anyways, so yes, my name is Hina Fatima. And how did I become an NLP Master Trauma Coach? So basically, I am a doctor from Pakistan. And I came to US roughly 14 years ago. I got married and I migrated. But unfortunately, because of family commitment, I was taking care of my mother-in-law, and then I got pregnant. I had two babies, two daughters. So I was not able to complete my, the licensing exam that you have, the USMLE exams, and get into the residency program. So basically, I was essentially a stay-at-home mom for the first 10 years while I was here in US. And but even in those 10 years, I was a very active person because naturally I was a fresh graduate. I was a doctor. I was active, energetic, and I needed to feel and stay alive, and just not like physically and energetically, you want to feel alive intellectually, emotionally. You want to feel that you're doing something, you're contributing. So I've been very active all my life. I was part of Kiwanis. I was part of Mom's Club while the girls were growing up, and kind of participating in volunteer work and stuff like that. And then eventually, once the girls grew up, a job automatically, a clinical research job came knocking at my door, and that's where my faith comes in, because I believe everything's happening in its time. And when my little one, she was ready for kindergarten that year, I met this doctor, and he told me that he was looking for people for his research, and he hired me, and I worked with him for almost 3 years. And after those 3 years, COVID hit, and when COVID hit, I was working partly from home, partly, I was going in. Naturally, the girls were home, and that's when I came across NLP.
Mm.
NLP, I had no idea about coaching at that time. So when I did NLP, that was roughly 2020. I realized that I can use this to help other people. I did NLP for myself. It was more of a personal development tool because there were issues that I was dealing with. And, there's depression, some trauma, past traumas that were happening, that were resurfacing. And so I realized I needed, to kind of train myself in some ways. And that's when I did NLP, and it helped me so much. And I realized, and that's where I started researching coaching. And I realized that there are so many people out there doing things. And I felt with my background, and with my knowledge, and with my skill set, and with my expertise, I thought I could do it too. And maybe I could do it better than other people, or if not better, at least as good as them. And that's how this journey of mine started. Initially, it was more of a mental health thing, but
Mm.
then, knowing, being a doctor myself, I know mental health is very vast. It's huge,
Mm-hmm.
and then there are really clinical, diseases and mental illnesses which need a treatment. Clinical depression, or such as schizophrenia, bipolar, so there are, for example, say depression and anxiety, everybody has it. But then there is a time when you need medication for it. So to be able to identify that it's just a general sadness that we're feeling,
Mm.
it's just a general grief that we're having, it's just maybe a general anxiety that we're having because we have an exam coming up, or because we're pregnant and we're expecting, or there's something new happening in our life and we're fearful and we're afraid. Is it just that anxiety, or is it something really that needs treatment?
Mm.
Right. And so I wanted to kind of, because since I am not working as a clinical physician here, so so that's where I had to kind of narrow down who I would want to help with.
Mm.
And then trauma came because I basically am a self-diagnosed PTSD
Mm.
patient. I diagnose myself as PTSD because a lot of things have happened in my life. And when I did NLP and when I started working with other people, I realized that my own symptoms, my own depression, my own postpartum depression was actually originating from my traumas.
Mm.
And the thing is, you see, when time passes, you tend to push them under the carpet.
Yeah.
You think, oh, you've healed. Something happened when you were 14, and it happened long time ago. Now 20 years have passed, 30 years have passed, and you're over it. You've
Mm-hmm.
moved on. They say time is the best healer. But when you get triggered, it comes back and you don't realize it. It's subconscious.
Yeah.
It's that subconscious feeding and the conditioning that we have that starts driving us. Because things what we've seen in our life, things when we're kids, we've seen our parents, we've seen our teachers, we've seen other people in our life, and it's sitting there
Mm-hmm.
and we don't know.
Yeah.
And it comes back. It comes back. And and so of course when I started dealing with my own PTSD, and when I work with other people with PTSD, and when we connect, it's so much more than just I'm helping people. It's like we're connecting, we're
Mm.
relating, we're both helping each other. And so that's how I became a trauma coach, basically.
I love that so much because the idea of the healing being multi-directional, and that it's sort of the old model or old currently existing model of I'm going to heal you, versus there's the potential for healing for everyone involved.
Process.
More of a holistic approach. Yeah, I love that. So I want to take you back a couple minutes. And for anybody who's watching or listening, can you explain a little bit about NLP? If they've never heard of NLP before, what is it?
So NLP is neuro linguistic programming. So neuro is your mind, your brain, linguistic is the language, and programming is how we're using our language to influence the way we think, the way we process information, the way we store information. All that comes in programming. So our memories, is part of how we've processed information. Something happened in the past. What part of it do we remember? How did we perceive it? Sometimes it's the same event, but you may have two sisters but who recall different things. They recall different aspects of it. They may recall the same conversation, but they may give us different meaning to it. Right? Why is that happening? Because when we process information and when we store it, that it's our emotion is involved in it, right? How we're feeling at that moment. If we're feeling scared, if we're happy, if we're sad. How many times it happens if we're not in a good mood, no matter what joke somebody tells you, you don't feel like laughing. It just isn't funny because you're not in that zone, and so that is so very important, our emotion. And emotion comes from our narrative. Okay, so in NLP, what's happening is that we're changing the narrative that we're telling ourselves. We're changing our stories. We're changing the words we use to describe generally anything, whether it's something that we're trying to recall from the past, or whether it's a present moment or it's a future, right? We're trying to change that because when we change those words, we're changing its impact, because then our mind is looking at those positive words, right? And it's looking at it with a different perspective. And when we do that, our emotion changes, the way we react changes. You know? And so that is what NLP is. So it's basically, and then another thing what happens with NLP is that NLP has kind of created different processes. There are techniques. So like we do know that there is the cognitive behavioral therapy that people use, or they have the EFT people use. They have the eye motion, EMDR, I believe. These are different techniques that different therapists and psychologists use, right? And so NLP is also a technique. It's kind of a technique. They have processes. They have multiple processes. Belief change process. They're changing history, change history process, generating new behaviors. And so what happens with this is it's an experience. If I tell you to do something, I mean, it's literally just like me telling you to do something. It's like a lecture. You know how when children say, "Oh, they're just preaching." Teachers are just preaching, or teaching.
Yes.
You're listening
Yes.
one ear, it's out the other ear. Or when you experience it, when you feel the whole emotion, that's when you're able to feel it. And so, for example, another thing with NLP is, because it's an experience, how do we make you experience it? We make you visualize it. So there are 5 senses. It's the vision, it's hearing, it's smelling, tasting, and naturally feeling. The feeling can be external, it can be internal, how we feel internally, right? We're heart racing, or stomach churning, or a headache, or dizziness, lightheadedness, feeling sad, feeling happy. So anything that we think of, even if I tell you right now to think of a memory, of a good memory, say a birthday party or any party that you attended, what are you doing? If you're recalling a memory, you're creating it. You don't realize it, but you're creating it in front of you.
Right.
You're going back in that and you're remembering, oh, we went to this place. There were these people there. There were these decorations. We had this food. And what's happening when you're thinking of the food, automatically the taste is coming in your mouth. You remember it. You can smell it. You can smell the flowers. You remember who was wearing what. So you create it visually. in the same way, when we talk about future, if somebody's saying, I'm what if I fail? What they're fearful, or they have, when they're anxious, what is it? What are they doing in their mind? They're creating this image
Right.
that they're
Right.
failing in some way, that people are making fun of them in some way, or that they're not perfect in some way, right? And so we change that. If you can imagine failing, you can even imagine succeeding. So what
Mm-hmm.
would succeeding look like?
Yeah.
What would being confident look like? What would achieving something look like? What would achieving, becoming a doctor or an engineer or whatever you want to achieve look like? So even if you say fail that one exam, but you're attempting it, you're learning, so we have them go through that process. We have them visualize it, we have them feel it. Because till they do not feel it, till they do not experience it, it's just words.
Oh my gosh. I
That's what
I
NLP is all about.
I love it. I love how you said if you can imagine failing, you can imagine succeeding. Like
There you go.
it's the same muscle. You're just shifting perspective.
It's a story
And
you're creating.
yeah.
If failing is a story that you're creating, you're assuming, then succeeding is a story too.
I
Why
love
not
it.
think of that?
I love it. And I love the simplicity of that. I'm such a huge nerd for the brain science and changing your brain, whether, you're addressing your emotions, your limbic system, that fight or flight system. Now we talk about it more in terms of polyvagal theory and trauma. Like these are the things that I'm so excited about. I mean, not that people have difficulty with traumas and things, but the fact that we're getting so much new information about how the human body and brain works, and we're being able to explain it to people in a way that makes sense to them so that it makes remarkable changes for the way that they live their lives and the way that they see their lives. So I get so excited about that. I have a background in occupational
There is this.
therapy, and yeah, go
You have
ahead.
a background in what? Sorry.
In occupational therapy.
Yes. Yes.
So, and specifically sensory integration and processing.
Yeah.
So when you start talking about the senses and how things feel, and like anything where you jump into like how you change how the brain functions, just makes me like I start dancing in my chair because I'm like, oh, this is so exciting.
So like there is this story, probably people know about it, that there were twins, there were two brothers, and one of them was a successful businessman and the other one was not. He was an alcoholic, and he was not doing well in life generally. And so somebody asked the successful brother, how what's the secret behind your success? And his response was, my father was an alcoholic. And then they went and then they asked the other brother the reason behind him not being successful in life. And his response was, my father was an alcoholic.
Mm,
You see, it's the same household, same father, and how both the brothers perceived it.
mm,
One of them took it as a challenge. He was like, I'm not going to make the mistakes my father made. I'm going to make my life better.
mm,
And he took it upon himself to change his story. He did not want to repeat it.
mm-hmm,
you know while the other brother, probably he was beaten up, maybe the father abused him, verbally, or was, I don't know, whatever happens, in dysfunctional families, it happened to him, and he was more of in a victim
mm,
mindset.
mm,
And he was like, I've never been given the opportunities, and I don't deserve it, and I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy of love, and with all that self-talk
mm,
that he had conditioned himself to, what
mm-hmm,
happened eventually, that he didn't succeed because that was the story he had created. And
mm-hmm.
so when I work with people, I tell them, yes, when you're a child, it's understandable that um, things are not in your control.
Mm-hmm.
Under your parents' influence, and you're learning, and things happen to you, and sometimes bad things happen to you. But then
Mm-hmm.
at some point we do grow up, and at some point we need to start taking charge of our life. And so when will that point come? So if people are suffering, at some point, whenever you feel ready, it's you need to say like, yeah, I want to change my life now.
Mm.
Okay, and I want to take charge of my life, and I want to change the story.
Yeah.
And the story can be changed, and I have the resources, or I can create the resources. And so there's another process that I do with people, which is called modeling, and it's a very useful process. You're modeling other people, and in the real sense, like we have inspirations, we have role models in our life. They can be real people, like our maybe a parent, maybe a grandparent, maybe a teacher, a mentor, somebody, or it could be maybe a celebrity, somebody, an author, somebody else, somebody you don't know personally, somebody larger than life. Look at their life stories,
Mm-hmm.
read about them. How did they
Mm-hmm.
get there?
Mm-hmm.
you know nobody reached there in one day.
Right.
Nobody had all the opportunities given to them in a golden plate. And they all fought their way there. They all
Yeah.
failed at some point. They all questioned themselves at some point. you know uh, so for example, I have this one girl, and she has a lot of, she has some body image, low body image about herself. And so I had her imagine somebody else who may not be perfect physically in the eyes of people, maybe, not that I'm saying that they're not good looking. It's just that that's how we are. And so anybody you think people would make fun of physically, and but they're doing well in life. And she came up with two people, and one of them, maybe I can name her Oprah Winfrey. So she's a black woman. Okay, she has struggled with her weight. She suffered from trauma. Okay, she suffered from abuse, and she shares her story. But she's doing well in life, and she
Mm-hmm.
went there, she reached there. How? And she's confident in her skin,
Yeah.
right? And we don't know what happens behind closed doors. We don't know if she questions herself, and which she does. We don't know if there were days where she cried herself to sleep, which she probably did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, she's a beautiful, beautiful woman.
Yeah.
You know, why is she beautiful? Not just because she physically, she's a beautiful woman from the inside.
Yes.
And so if you start thinking of Oprah and you go like, if Oprah can do it,
Yeah.
we can do it too. If
Yep.
I am maybe physically as big as her, or if I'm maybe as dark as her, or if I'm maybe abused the way she was, or I have issues maybe worse than hers
Mm-hmm.
that she had, excuse me, you know, she survived and she thrived. We can do it too. And so
Yeah.
when we model them, like, if I have you imagine that you're Oprah Winfrey, and if I have you become her, for instance, if you're Oprah Winfrey and whatever is happening in your life, imagine what would Oprah do.
Yeah.
Have her walk through Oprah's shoes.
Yeah.
And when they actually start modeling them, how would Oprah react to this? If your husband or your child is behaving this way, or if somebody is saying something to you, how would Oprah behave? What would she do?
Yeah.
You know,
I love it. I love it. It's sort of like you're
you're
embodying the
in person.
qualities of that person because what you really admire are the some of the qualities that they have. Oprah is a great one because she's very easy to admire. I adore her.
Yeah,
I've adored her since I watched her at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time
yeah,
when I was
yes.
younger.
I've seen her since my childhood. We were
Mm-hmm.
very young. Yes.
Exactly. And I think yeah, I think that idea of what are those qualities and even to take it to now, if you think about social media and I'm sure as soon as you associate yourself in some small way with the term coach, like your social media feeds are
Yeah,
flooded with different coaches of varying types.
yeah,
And it's so easy to compare yourself to them, but instead seeing like, well, if they can all do it, then
Yeah.
I can too. That's evidence. That's
Yes.
evidence that it's
And
possible.
then there are people, whose language is not clear. Maybe they don't speak perfect English. They have their imperfections. Again, as we said, we were talking about aiming for imperfection. So we're
Mm,
looking at other people and looking at their imperfection and saying, are we making fun of them? No. Do we make fun of them? Again, as you said, if you go on social media, somebody who has so many followers and people love them, but maybe they have a scar somewhere.
mm-hmm,
Maybe they're too thin. Maybe their hair is brittle.
mm-hmm,
Maybe they stutter when they speak. Maybe their
mm-hmm,
English is not clear.
mm,
Maybe they speak some other accent. Maybe they're from some country where their accent is very different.
mm-hmm,
You have Sudanese, and you have Australians, and you have the British, and you have people from all over the world with different accents. People from Pakistan, India, they have different accents. But when
mm-hmm.
you follow them, you may say, oh, you may, for instance, find something funny they said, maybe an accent, maybe a way, but then it doesn't really matter, because what they're saying matters.
Yes.
People make mistakes people make mistakes all the time, and nobody is paying attention to those mistakes. It's only literally maybe till we're kids that
Mm,
these things happen,
mm-hmm.
but once you grow up, no, everybody knows, we have to own our imperfections.
Amen.
That is what it
Yeah.
is. And the thing is, just imagine, like, when we go out and we look at other people, they're struggling. If we see a mom who's struggling, if we see a, a teacher struggling, we don't go and start judging them. If we're not judging other people, they're not judging us either. Generally, people don't do that. There could be a few people, but generally, people don't do that. And even if they do it, it's very temporary. It's very temporary, and it's over.
Mm-hmm.
It does not matter. Everybody has their life. They're struggling in their life. Everybody has their story, and just own it, accept it. You don't have to run away from it.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
love this. And I think it's so true. I think, you know, we can grow up kind of trying to be so perfect, and we think everybody's going to notice our flaws and the things about us that we try to hide that probably ultimately make us the unique, cool people we are. But ultimately, when you look back at everything, you say, oh my gosh, nobody else had any time to worry about where I was imperfect. They were in their own heads, feeling their own imperfections and trying to feel like they belong and feel like they're worthy. And, you know, now I agree with you. I get excited about the variety of people who are coming into my world, literally from across the globe, which is super exciting. And, you know, we don't have to show up with some perfect image all the time.
yeah.
You know, I think that is such a great message, especially for women, especially for moms, that you show up as you are.
I would like to add here, for moms who are struggling,
Mm,
because I had postpartum depression after both my daughters, and I had severe postpartum depression, in the fact that literally I was getting hysterical.
mm,
I got hysterical. In one of the fights, I literally broke a lot of things in my house as well, because I just lost it. I
mm,
was so angry and upset. And you're worthy of love no matter what.
mm.
Okay. And bringing a life into this planet is not easy. So if men tell us, anybody, if tells us that, what's the big deal? All of the women do it. I've heard it, my mother has heard it. This is something that all women get to hear from somebody or the other in their life, where people are telling them, what's the big deal? You're not the first pregnant woman.
Mm-hmm.
And when my partner, Afaf, do you need anything? Okay, pick what you need, and please excuse me. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. It's perfect
There you go.
timing.
This is that imperfect life.
Yes.
Afaf, I want you out, beta, please. I because I'm talking something. Please. Thank you. I'm sorry about that.
No apology
Um,
necessary. We're all relating to you on such a high level.
so what was I saying?
You were
Now,
saying, someone who
yeah.
has given birth
So
to a child.
yes. So like my one time I was not feeling well, and my husband said something like that, and I was like, yeah, but the thing is, if every mother goes through it, every mother is special. I was like, have you ever considered waking up in the morning and feeling nauseous? I asked him, I literally asked him, I was like, just imagine for a minute that you are waking up every day in the morning with nausea. You don't feel like eating anything. And when you're eating anything, you're throwing up, you know? And you being a man, men normally they have just even a headache or their slight fever or cough and they're in bed all day long. And so it's been happening that for a couple of months. And this is for somebody, a woman who's not having severe nausea, who's not having the hyperemesis. It's somebody which is having only just 1 month or 2 months. So I reminded him, I was like, so even if one woman is having it, we need to praise her because even if it's very common, that is why we need to praise these women because it's something that you as a man, as a very strong person who thinks he's very strong, you will not be able to bear it if you have nausea even for 2 days, right? And then after that, the pain and the delivering of the child, and then what happens to our bodies after that, our careers, we have to give up our careers because of it, we have to give up our social and all kinds of lives, we go in this depression, we have these mood swings, our hormones, our hair, our skin, our clothes are not fitting us. People don't realize it what we're going through, and they
Right.
think, oh, so what, everybody, all the women go through it. I'm like, yeah, yeah, if all the women go through it, then all the women deserve to be queens.
Yeah.
That's it, right? So you are worthy of it, number one. Number two thing I wanted to point out here, if you're suicidal at any point, because I am suicidal trained also, but if at any point anybody is suicidal, okay, especially a mother, because this happened with me once, and I would just like to share with a client of mine that she had a baby. She had, I believe, two or three. It was her third child, and she probably was going through postpartum depression, and she was suicidal. And she was like, "If I die, nobody will miss me." And I was like, "What about your kids?" And she was like, "Well, my husband will remarry, and they will have a mother. And so what? Kids get raised. They're so little right now that somebody will raise them and they'll grow up and they'll be fine. That's what how she felt. And then I asked her, okay, for a minute, imagine your mother passed away when you were little. For a minute, imagine your mother commits suicide. Even with your mother's flaws, nobody's perfect, right? Even knowing how your mother was while you grew up and you saw her. But if I tell you, even for a single minute, that you just imagine she passes away or she committed suicide, and now your father goes and remarries, how would that make you feel? All right. And she was like, horrible. I was like, if your mother was a horrible woman, say, even if you just assume it, wouldn't you be happy? Wouldn't you say, oh, okay, she's gone. Thank God, my father remarried. She's like, no. I know, because that's what it is with mothers. Children don't care if their mothers are not beautiful. Children don't care if their parents, are not perfect. or not making a lot of money. If for a minute we think about our childhood, did we ever think about what our parents went through to raise us?
No.
No. I don't know. Maybe my mother had postpartum depression too. Maybe she suffered too, and she did. I know that now.
Mm-hmm.
She had a lot of struggles in her life too,
Mm.
right? But what, as children, we wanted were just them to be there and be happy.
Yep.
Today, it doesn't matter. I don't even remember the expensive gifts they gave us. Really,
Right.
really, I don't. Today,
No.
if I go back and think of what did they give me at my fifth birthday or my 10th birthday or my 15th birthday, even if it was an expensive gift, it doesn't matter,
No.
you know? And so that's it. That's what your children need.
Yep.
Okay. And
You.
so if you, yes,
Present.
that's it. And
Yeah.
and believe me, I have people who come to me right now, my some of people who reach out to me for help, who are elderly, who have made mistakes, who have children who are older, who are grandparents now, but their kids do not meet them because they were not very nice parents, because they were not
Mm.
there for their parents,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so now their children don't meet them very often, right? And they regret it and they want to make amends. They're in their 70s and 80s or 60s, whatever, and they're trying to make amends with their kids because now they're old and the children are not willing to forgive them
Mm.
because for them they were not there when we needed them. They were
Mm-hmm.
not good parents.
Mm-hmm.
So remember this dynamic, and so if that is how it is with our parents, we remember every good and bad thing they did with us. That's with our kids too. They will remember. They will
Mm-hmm.
not remember that I suffered from postpartum depression. They will not remember that I was financially struggling. They will
Mm-hmm.
remember if I hit them or if I abuse them or if I love them or if I leave them. Any good and bad extremes that I do with them, they will remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And so establish that bond. It is so important.
Yeah.
Establish that bond. Okay? Don't repeat stories.
Yeah. I
Change
think
that.
that's so huge. And I mean, and the
I
the
see
trauma.
it's making you emotional.
Yeah, no, I feel it on so many levels. I mean, the science and the research out there shows that children, in order to have like survival through all kinds of traumas, they have to have one adult where they have like a good and strong attachment with, that one person who lights up when they come into the room. One, and it doesn't need to be a primary caregiver. It can be somebody else, but somebody consistent in their life, and that is an indicator that they'll be more successful and heal through life. And the other piece of it is I know for my own experience, I didn't have postpartum depression, but I had postpartum anxiety, and I didn't know that that was a thing. I just thought it was me. And so I think it's so important to continue to have these conversations, because I just know there are new moms out there who are withholding how they're feeling because they believe that they're supposed to be holding it all together. And like you said, giving birth is traumatic. It is wonderful, it is beautiful, but it is also trauma on your body, and it's hard to heal. And you have this new little person who screams and cries all the time, and you're sleep deprived, and they use sleep
Physically
deprivation as torture.
exhausting. Giving birth is physically exhausting.
It really is, no matter what your experience is. And so I think having more conversations around, like you said, celebrating motherhood and moms and rallying around them and really checking in and making sure they're okay. I think we're also sort of afraid to upset the apple cart and to, ask a mom, like, are you okay? Like, are you are you hanging in there? What do you need? What can I do? I mean, people are very commonly I know will be like, oh, I can come and hold the baby. And you're like, well, that might not be like, that might not be what I need. But also I think the expectation of, the perfect nursery, the perfect dressed newborn. I mean, they poop through everything. There's like very few perfect moments in an outfit unless you fed them, you changed them, you dressed them, and they fell asleep. They look precious. But, like the unrealistic expectation that is set and we continuously put on ourselves, I think needs so much addressing. And I think we need so much more compassion
A
for
lot.
moms.
Uh,
Yeah.
and self-care, a lot of
Yeah.
self-care, a
Yeah.
lot of, it's okay if food is not cooked. It's okay. Um, it's okay if you're not wearing the right clothes, or if you didn't get time to do things. It's okay. And but if you can take out time for that, take out time for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Let the laundry be, but if you
Mm-hmm.
need that sleep, take it.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't. It feels more like a good advice. Everybody tells us that they will sleep
Mm-hmm.
when the baby is sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, what happens is when the baby is sleeping, we're trying to do our laundry or cook food. That is reality. And that also basically comes because we have this expectation from society,
Yeah.
right? Our husbands want to come home and the house clean and food cooked, even if you've had a baby 2 days ago.
Yeah, that's not happening.
It's very unrealistic expectation, and it's there,
Yeah.
and we're making it happen. The thing is, we're enabling it.
Yeah, it's time to stop enabling that. And
We're
I
enabling.
think also I think there's more we can do in terms of, you know, you're they're very resilient newborns. They they don't need all of the things. They just need you most of the time. And I wish we did better job taking care of new moms. And I'm generally speaking, I know there are lots of people who have had great experiences and great support systems. Um,
And a reminder that this time too shall pass.
yeah.
Time too shall pass. All the time passes. I know, especially when we're young, because when I was young, like in my 20s maybe, I used to feel 40-year old. So you feel like you need to do everything right now. You feel like this is the time where you want to have fun. This is the time where you want to make your career. This is the time where you want to go out and travel the world because you feel you have the energy. Because when you will be 40, you will be old. Oh, who wants to do it when you're 40? You're too old by that time. No, no. I turned 40 this year. Literally, I turned
I
40
love
this
it.
year. And I say it outright to you. I've never felt better. I say 40 is the new 20. Because
Absolutely.
right now with my girls growing up, I'm doing more fun things with them. We're going out hiking, we're playing, we're cooking together, we're dressing up together, we're going to the park together. So we're doing a lot of things together, volunteering as well. Now I'm back making my career. It was put on a hold, but it can restart, and it can restart at any point. So
Mm,
this concept that these young people in the 20s have, that this is the time to live and enjoy, no, that is the most struggling period, because that is a time where you're studying. It's hard if you're trying to become a complete your studies and build a career and have
mm-hmm.
a so the
Mm-hmm.
20s and the 30s is the hardest year,
Yeah.
you know and just go with the flow, accept it, because don't regret anything. Or when I work with clients, there are 5 areas in life that I work with. One is your self-care is very important. A
Mm,
lot of times we start giving importance to other areas, but we don't take care of ourselves. So self-care doesn't just mean going for a mani and a pedi or going out to eat with
mm-hmm.
moms and stuff. Self-care also means maybe doing something, maybe having a hobby, maybe reading a book, maybe
Mm-hmm.
just relaxing, sleeping one day,
Mm-hmm.
maybe. So these are things in self-care too. Maybe your hobbies, we, as a child, we believe, okay, coloring, painting, sewing, or riding a bike, these are our hobbies. When we grow up and we become mothers ourselves, we go like, okay, these were childish things. No.
Mm-hmm.
What are you passionate about? What do you like doing for yourself? Do it. Okay.
Yes.
Then, of course, comes the career or your purpose. And I normally put the purpose and career together because some people who don't have a career or may not be working, but they want to feel that they have a purpose in life, and it's very important. This is
Mm-hmm.
so important for moms. I have a friend of mine, and I love her so much. She was a gold medalist. She has done something in biotechnology or something, and she is from India, and she got a gold medal in her masters.
Mm.
She's right now raising three kids, and she tells me that this is my purpose. I am. She's proud to be a mother, and she feels her little one is right now 3, and just
Mm.
like me, she's the first 10 years till the kids are old enough to be in school. She's found that purpose, so she's not frustrated. She's not angry. She's not
Mm.
suffering. That sometimes in the start she used to have this argument with her husband because her husband and she were in the same class together, and
Mm-hmm.
so of course the
Mm-hmm.
husband is doing well career wise and she's nowhere, and she keeps reminding him you know that you are able to do better in life and I'm not, like, professionally, because I had to give up. And then one day I had this conversation with her. I was like, did he force you to sit at home? She goes like, no. I was like, then why do you keep telling him that? He's your partner. If you keep demanding him and keep comparing yourself with him, you're damaging his self-esteem too.
Mm.
Because he didn't force you. You made this choice because you had children. And see again, these are the choices that we make.
Mm-hmm.
If your career was so important to you, you shouldn't have gotten married. If you got married, you shouldn't have had kids. You chose to have kids. You chose to get married. And so now when you've chosen that, own it, accept it. You still have a choice. Leave your kids at a daycare and go make your career.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's stopping you. But if you're choosing not to send them to daycare because you want to raise them yourself, it's your choice.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you arguing with your husband because you're internally frustrated that you've not been doing anything just because you have a house to raise?
Yeah.
It's unfair. It's
It,
unfair on your
oh my
husband.
gosh. It's such a good conversation, Hannah, because I think it becomes a great divide.
It does.
And, I happen to be a working mom, and that can be very challenging in its own ways. But it doesn't mean that I'm any less of an engaged mother. And it also doesn't mean that if you're staying home with your kids that you're any less, successful or I love that people would find that as their purpose. I mean, I think that's
Yeah, you
such
choose
a
your
gorgeous
purpose.
thing.
Yeah.
Why not?
It's a choice.
It's a
Everything in life
choice.
is a choice.
Mm-hmm.
So if you choose it, make it your purpose. It can be a
Mm-hmm.
temporary purpose. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
I choose to be a stay-at-home mom till my kids are in school.
Mm-hmm.
I choose to see when I got married and in the start because I had my mother-in-law living with me and she was sick. This is before I got pregnant. I got pregnant after 3 years of my marriage, and I had, because I had migrated from Pakistan. I wasn't settling here. I didn't like it
Mm-hmm.
here. I was very young. I was 25 at that time, and taking care of a mother-in-law and a husband, and not being able to become a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
I was studying, and I was not able to balance it. So what was happening was me and my partner were fighting a lot, and literally we were on the verge of breaking up.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when it was that I was like, okay, because of the stress of my studies, because when you're a student, you can study 24/7.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're a student, especially in your parents' house, and you're not independent, you're not worried about cooking, cleaning, or the household expenses or anything. Over here, I couldn't. And to become a doctor is not easy. It's not easy. It's
No,
not like you just give 2 hours of studies and you become a doctor.
right.
So
It's intense.
for
Yeah.
me to give those 6 to 8 hours to my studies, and then to my mother-in-law, and then to my husband, and to my house, and then it was a cultural shock. I had come from Pakistan, so people. I mean, there were a lot of things that were happening in that moment, and so I had to choose. And I was like, yeah, if I settle in my marriage, I can always make a career. It can be done later on.
Mm.
I had to choose, or either the marriage would have ended, because those were the two choices I had: end the
Mm.
marriage, leave him, and go and become a doctor. I could have done that, you know, but I was like, no, I wanted to give because he was not a bad person, there was nothing bad, evil in it. It's just that we both were a little frustrated,
Mm-hmm.
and I did some self reflection. What happens is a lot of times we're trying to find faults in other people. So, but I had to look into within myself and see what is it that I could do differently to make
Mm-hmm.
it work.
Mm-hmm.
What was it that I was doing? And I knew I was struggling from depression. I knew I was not liking it here. I was all alone. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and so in the end, I was like, okay, so what I'll do is I'll try to settle here, try to create a relationship with my husband. And once I'm settled, we'll see. Career is not important. And look at it today. That's what I tell people. Where I am right now, I'm back to who I wanted to be. When I coach people, I'm essentially a doctor. That's how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So it fulfills that purpose that you
yes,
had and why you became a doctor in the first place. You're still fulfilling that
yeah.
purpose. You're still right
And,
where you wanted to be.
and that
Wow.
came because I never gave up.
Yeah.
Just keep trying. Just keep trying, okay? And learn from your mistakes and don't give up, and it'll come to you. You know, I'm a little religious person. I believe in God. Have a faith. So my faith is that, like if you keep striving, it comes to you, and it'll come to you at the right time.
Mm.
But yeah, you have to be with your intention. You have to be honest,
Mm.
and yeah, that's it. Just live your life. Try to live in the moment, in the present moment, and be happy.
I love it. I think that is such a beautiful way to cap the conversation. I just want to give you a couple minutes to talk about the things you have going on and the best ways for people to connect with you. And I'm just so excited. I'm so excited to see where life takes you next. And I
Thank you so
love
much.
the way that you've shifted, life for yourself and how you're back there. You're operating in the way that you intended to, just with a different sort of frame around it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. So, yes, as I had said, I am a trauma coach. So, you can find me on Facebook with Heal with Hina, Heal with Hina, Hina. And I'm on Instagram as well, Heal with underscore Hina. And so basically, I have a 6 month program in which there are essentially four things that I work with when I work with trauma or PTSD clients. First one being feeling good enough or feeling confident in what you're doing, overcoming that self doubt, because that is something which is one of the very first symptoms that people who experience any kind of trauma is that they start questioning their not just their worth but their competency, whether
Mm-hmm.
they will be able to do things or not. So that's the confidence part. The second part is the self-worthiness part, where they're feeling that they deserve, that
Mm.
whether they even deserve to be loved or not, or why are they here in this planet, what's their purpose. So that's the self-worthiness part. The third part I work with is emotional safety. We all want to feel safe. Okay, so a lot of our reactions are coming from the fact that we're threatened, we're
Mm.
triggered. Okay, so people may say something or we may see something which may trigger interrupts a thought process and may trigger a past experience or a memory, and then we go in that emotion. So how to feel emotionally safe, how to stay in the present moment, how not to let say your partner say something and it trigger you, and now you're fighting with him because it brought back a memory, right? And
Right,
you feel
right,
threatened, and he
right.
didn't even mean it in that way. He just said, why is the room dirty, and that's it. And that's all he meant. He just wanted something as simple as maybe a room cleaned, right? And we start arguing with him because we're thinking, oh, now they're judging us or they're thinking we're bad or something, blah, blah, blah. Because that's what we've told ourselves, that we're not good enough, right? And so emotional safety. And the fourth one is feeling in control. Again, very important, because when we feel we've lost control, that's when anger happens. That's when people pleasing happens, when we become doormats. Okay. And so being able to control ourselves, understanding, having that self awareness, where to put a full stop, where to start putting those boundaries, so that you don't become aggressive, neither you become too submissive. So all that comes in how you're behaving, you're acting. So there are these four areas which I work with. And so it's Heal with Hina. It's Be Your Own Hero project. This project is called. You can find it on the website as well. And then I also do 6 week smaller coaching sessions. So somebody who's not interested in a 6 month, they can just book a 6 week thing, and we go from there.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. I love Be Your Own Hero. I think that's such a great descriptor. I thank you so much for being here and
Thank you.
for chatting with me. I think these are some hugely meaningful topics, and I hope they land with the right people who need to hear it at the right time, because I think you're doing a lot to be out there to heal other people, and I really applaud you. I appreciate you, and
Thank
I
you
look
very
forward
much.
to staying in touch with you.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you so much.
All right, everyone. Thank you for listening. And if this podcast touched your heart, if you know a mom or someone who could benefit from it, please pass it on, and please rate and review the podcast, because we can get it to more people who need to hear it. And remember, stay curious. You never know where your curiosity is going to lead you. Take care, everyone.